Okay, I'm Veronica. I'm a political PR specialist, a yoga enthusiast. I love wine, I like to drink. And I'm a single mother of a boy named Meraki, like the best boy in the world, so yeah. His relation and I are very close since he lives with me. I think the maternal instinct really kicked in for someone who didn't want to be a mom to begin with. We're attached at the hip, so I'm proud about that, yeah. Before I got pregnant, I was working in one of the best whiskey bars in Manila. I would say it was one of the highlights of my career because first, I loved food and beverage. So yeah, it was one of the best chapters of my life because it was something that I was doing on my own. And then, because one of the partners of that establishment was also a creative, he was a film director, I met him and he was one of the owners of the place. Since he was also one of my bosses, technically, parang when we started like having an attraction, we had to keep it very low-key. So every time he'd visit, I'd be like, okay, stay away from me, I have to work the floor. So it was very professional. And then, after dating for like siguro mga 4 months. Yeah, after like 4 months of dating pa lang, and to call a spade, I practically got knocked up. I didn't want to have kids. I had a dog, I had a beautiful chocolate Labrador. I'm the youngest of 4 girls. May mga pamangkin ako. I said, I'm going to be the fun tita. But when I found out I was pregnant, okay na rin siguro. You know, I'm 29 years old. I have a career. I have my own place. I'm pretty financially stable. I mean, why not? Why not do it? So I told him, and when I told him, I was like, yeah, I'm pregnant. And he was like, yeah? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, let's do this. He's like, you want to do this? I'm like, I'm down if you're down. And he's like, game. So when we both agreed to doing this whole parenting thing, I'm sorry, nakakatawa kasi siya. Parang everything was just like smooth sailing na. Parang we took it on as a project. We were looking na for apartments in the city. So we were really on for it talaga. But one thing that kind of really did break my heart was because when I found out I was pregnant, I couldn't work at the whiskey bar that I was running. And it was like one of the loves of my life talaga, one of the best chapters of my life, running that bar. I couldn't because it was a cigar bar. Going back to what I said, because we'd only just gotten to know each other for 4 months and then having the responsibility of taking on a pregnancy, I think as we were going through the journey of being new parents, we really got to know each other talaga. Na parang, okay, this is not gonna work out. The fights were getting more often because we couldn't get along. We lasted for about like a year and a half. It took a few months for us to get along, then trying to see if we can still get back with each other. But because you become so comfortable na parang, okay, friends na ulit tayo, parang the expectations start coming back in, and parang you want to try to make it work. And then, we fell back into the patterns of fighting again. And then it really started getting nasty na. The fights were getting nasty even when we weren't together anymore. So that really led into one of the biggest battles of both of our lives. There were talks na about, okay, so we're not together anymore, like we have to talk about finances, which is par for the course talaga because we're not together. And there was a point that, okay, we have to talk about living situations, like, are you gonna stay in that apartment? Maybe we should look for another apartment. So both of us were really talking about, thinking of ways to move forward. It got to a point where we were, instead of just messaging via WhatsApp, parang we were sending emails na. And when an ex-couple starts sending emails na, parang I knew na, oh, okay, it's getting to this point where we're gonna get technical and we're gonna use this as paper trail. So may kutob na rin ako. Like, I think from watching all of the law movies, parang, ito na siya. Okay, nagiging seryoso na siya. And then the emails were very proper, very formal na. So yeah, I knew I had to first tell my father, tell my family what was going on, and they all knew that we had broken up, but they knew that something was going on. And I told them what was happening, and my dad said he's also in politics. He said, I think it's time for us to talk to a lawyer. From that point on, when we were setting the meeting between the parents and the whole family, the families, parang we knew na parang, okay, this could get pretty ugly. When we went to court, that was around June, and I was going through this legal battle. Like, syempre, I had to brush up on my family law. I'm like, okay, sandali lang, I have to study this, okay, because I'm also a toughie, and I'm not just gonna take any shit. Oh shit, sorry. I'm not gonna take any crap. So yeah, I'm like, I'm not gonna go down without a fight. And this is my 2.5-year-old son we're talking about, like my dad's first grandson. You know, and I'm his youngest daughter, and he only has girls. So I'm like, I have to fight for this. When you go to court, when you go to family court, and I learned this from the clerk when I was summoned. But I was talking to one of the clerks, and she said, alam mo, one of the hardest parts of my job at the court is I'd rather deal with rapists or drug addicts because sila at least makukulong na lang yan or marirehab. But the hardest part of my work is dealing with family court because we're talking about kids and children and minors, and they're caught in the crossfire of two people who are fighting. I got emotional because I'm like, I can imagine how hard it is. But yeah, when it comes to these cases, especially with like ex-lovers like suing each other, like really fighting, there's a lot of mudslinging naturally, whether online or offline or chismis you hear from around. Yeah, there was a lot of mudslinging, and I prepared myself naman for that. You know, I was prepared for the name calling, the narratives people would say about me. There are gonna be teams now. Friends that you had before would pick a side, and yeah, like I was called a lot of things. I was called a gold digger. I was called, and these were people that, you know, I built relationships with, but who also happened to be moms, but happily married moms, you know, one of those, you know, Christian, happily married momfluencer moms, and they would really use their platform, go online and, you know, call me a gold digger, like, why are you doing this to your son? You won't let your son see the dad. Trying to use the court of public opinion, of course, that's like one of the best ways to really get someone on your side. But I'll be very honest, it's not one of my proudest moments, but I did get public about it. And although it's not my proudest moments, like the people who really rallied on my side, kasi ako sumasanggalang naman ako, I was the one who was sued. The mothers that came and the support that came, and especially from single mothers, doting fathers even saying like, wow, Ronnie, just fight the good fight, do this for your son. So that kind of fortified me to continue on. I think our role as the parents when you're going through something like this, especially a legal battle, is our responsibility is to keep our children away from it as much as possible, protect them from it, you know, not say a bad thing about the other person. And both of us had already agreed to that, even if galit na ako, gusto na murahin yung tatay. I'm like, oh, yeah, your dad loves you, you're gonna see him soon, your dad is working, you know, you come up with these excuses. And he was 2.5 years old at the time, and of course he didn't understand anything. But I'd like to think that I did my job showing him that I wasn't breaking a sweat despite my battle with his dad. Making sure that he was still loved and by both families, but this transition is a little different. So that's where we have to really explain to them why these transitions are so different and how we're gonna move forward from it. We finally reached an agreement. It didn't go to trial, thank God, because I was prepared for that. Let's go to trial. Let's see if I'm a fit mother or not, because that was one of the accusations. Parang the fitness of my motherhood was being questioned because I was, you know, I was a party girl. I liked to drink. I went out at night, but that was my work. I worked at night. Come around March, he and I got to talking with our lawyers, and Yeah, there was just agreed that the case wanted to be dropped. I know, siguro napagod na rin siya. Parang, okay, let's be friends again, mag-usap na tayo. And I was like, that's all I wanted. At that moment when we talked that he wanted to actually, settle and negotiate, I said, that's all I wanted. And I'm easy to talk to, but then you're threatening to take my son away from me. Of course the claws will come out. But when we got to talking and we both aligned, almost 180, nag-usap kami. It was one of the best talks of our life. Like parang, I would say, like while I was eating my salad, parang, you did say a lot of shit about me. So you would understand why I would be so mad, right? And he's like, yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, I just had to let that out. Yeah, it was nice, and I told my dad about this, and he was really happy to hear it because he was really my champion during this whole battle. And finally in June, our lawyers were coordinating. We went before the court. We submitted a joint motion to dismiss the case, and that we've reached a compromise agreement. And the judge, I remember, the judge was very happy. Like, he was a guy, and he said, you know what, this is wonderful news. Like, all lawyers should go for this goal. This is for the child, and I'm so happy it didn't go to trial. I prayed for that every night. And then when it got to that point, I got really emotional because, we got to that point. Now, my relationship with the dad it's very civil, very copacetic. Parang friends na rin, but not too chummy. The trust had to be rebuilt. Our communications had to change. And we had to be aligned with how we moved forward as co-parents. But I'd like to say now that we're in a very harmonious place. My advice to those who don't have good communication with their ex-partners, well, first, it's important that you have a support group. We can't say that enough. I can't say that enough. Like, when you have a solid support group, like your friends or your family or your colleagues, like just someone you can talk to. They could give different perspectives on how to move forward. If you're having a hard time talking with your ex-partner, there also have to be interventions. You shouldn't stop trying then, reaching out to that person. But if they're getting difficult, syempre, we have to also know when to take a step back. From I learned, nagging is never really the way to get someone's attention. I'm learning. Hindi pala maganda mag-nag. Or to put blame, finger pointing. Yeah, that's ang sarap din mag-finger point. Let's be honest, ang sarap to blame because when you're so angry, you have to place that blame into something and then you'll feel good for like 5 minutes. But at the end of the day, like all of that just doesn't make you look good and you don't feel good. So before getting into a conversation with your ex-partner, it's really important knowing what you're doing it all for. Having that clear idea and just really self-regulating yourself into being calm and receptive and open to the other partner.